Okay, hi. So I want to look at the Module 4 template, and I've modified it some, and I did that um, because I forgot that in one of the videos that I have up that I gave you options. So when that was sort of brought to my attention, I went, oh yeah, I remember that now. So I want to go through the module and sort of provide you with a background for the options that you have. And you basically have three options. But regardless of the option, you still have an essay that's 5 to 8 pages long. And there's plenty of information, regardless of the option, to get to 8 pages without any problem at all. Okay, so before I do that, um, I'm trying to sit a little bit closer to my iPad, and I'm trying to speak a little more clearly and loudly. I do not spend a lot of time looking at ratemyprofessor.com. I spend very little time at it, and I've basically found that most of the comments are just not helpful. So I look maybe once or twice fall, spring semester, and once or twice during the summer. So I looked a day or so ago, and there's a common new one that basically was complaining about the noise level in the videos. Apparently I speak too quietly. So I'm moving a little bit closer to the microphone. I'm trying to speak a little bit more loudly. Hopefully that'll help. So anyway, in the module, I went in last night and altered your last module template, module 4 template. So this template, if you've looked at it, you go, oh my God, look at all these parts, all these sections. There's 6 sections plus an introduction and a conclusion. And I can see why some of you would sort of freak out over that. But literally, it's divided into 2 component parts, domestic and foreign policy. Okay, so here are the options. The first 3 sections of the essay template deal with domestic policy. And you're basically building from the federalism and IGR module the system of government, what it looks like, the component parts of it. And I have a model in the domestic policy part that basically shows you what I'm talking about. The second 3 sections looks at foreign policy. And I have a model in there to look at the system of government in terms of U.S. foreign policy. And I've given you 2 ways of thinking about U.S. foreign policy, whether U.S. foreign policy is transactional or transformational. And I've given you 2 models from international relations, realism and idealism, to sort of help you to understand the difference between transactional and transformational public policy. In the domestic part, I've given you 2 models. One is the systems approach. The other is the organized anarchy approach. So here's what I'm offering you. I'm offering you 3 options. 1, do the essay just like it is, with sections A, B, C, D, E, and F looking at both domestic and foreign policy. Or 2, you can choose domestic policy, and you would focus on the first 3 sections of the template, sections A, B, and C. Or the third option is you can focus on foreign policy, and foreign policy gets you to sections D, E, and F in the template. So either way, you're still going to have to write an essay that's 4 to 8 pages long. So I'm hoping that that will help you in terms of figuring out the template and in figuring out what direction you want to head in. But in this 4th module, the focus is on public policy. There are a number of simplified definitions of public policy in the module. All of those simplified definitions go with the stages approach. You have my definition of policy, and you also have a description of the policy process by Nicholas Zahariadis. Me, Zahariadis, We are in Module 4, and we are associated with the organized anarchy approach. There are a number of examples of both approaches. There are a number of examples played out in the real world in terms of domestic policy focused on internal U.S. or possibly our territories, Guam, American Samoa. There's a hurricane, not a hurricane, but there's a tropical depression headed for Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico is one of our territories. So there's the domestic part, and then there's the foreign policy part. In the textbook, you have a social policy, domestic policy chapter, and you have a foreign policy chapter. I've given you examples of U.S. foreign policy, how it works in the real world, and sometimes how it doesn't. And the same way with domestic policy. And the reason that I gave you the organized anarchy approach is very clear. We are confronted with a number of problems, internal to the U.S. and external to the U.S. And it requires the policy process to deal with these things, like COVID-19. And you need to ask yourself a question. Is it possible for governmental officials responding to demands from outside government to make things worse, to make a problem worse? And the answer is absolutely yes. So the reason that I give you the organized anarchy approach is the answer to that question. If governmental decisions and actions can actually make things worse, then we're not talking about a straightforward, linear, logical, sequential process designed to solve problems. Oh no. We are talking about a convoluted, ambiguous, complex process where it is absolutely possible for governmental actions, governmental decisions to make things worse. So that's the template. And if you have questions, let me know. And we can talk about this during office hours. But you really need to dig into this module. There's a lot of material for domestic. There's a lot of material for foreign. A lot of things to think about. So hopefully that helped. Thanks.